Welcome in, everybody. Happy Tuesday on the Tuesday Live Texas stream or Texas live stream here on Texas Football. And what a Tuesday it's going to be. We've got an hour plus of conversation with you, your questions, your super chats, your conversations surrounding the NFL draft from the weekend. Spring practice is over, and the Longhorns now head into a bit of a break and a bye week or bye stretch here where they won't do much until the summertime. So we have a lot to talk about. Reset, roster, portal is closed again. So here we go. We've got a lot to look at and look forward to into the month of May, which we're in the last week of April, month of May into June. And the Texas Longhorns, I saw an On3 Sports Andy Staples preseason top 25 coming out of the portal and spring practice. It has Texas at number one, guys, number one in the country to come out of spring, the portal, the additions that they made. According to Andy Staples and On3, they're the number one team in the country with Notre Dame right on their heels. Penn State is in the top five, when we'll go through that coming up. But that's the expectation, at least from people around the country, with the portal additions, the special teams improvements, and obviously Arch Manning at the helm. Are you guys on board with Texas as the preseason number one in 2025?
Oh, man. That's a tough question. I mean, they're definitely going to be one of the top, in my opinion, top five best teams in the country. Number one means you're the best team. Man, because I'm hoping they're number one at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So this team is a young team. I've heard from the coaches, and Jeff, you've heard Sark remark about this. I'm sure you have as well, E. Some of the players, they talk about it too, that it's a younger team, but they said it has more juice. Like the guys, like I think it's why we hear a lot about the trash talking and all that kind of stuff. Like it has a lot more juice because the guys feel like they got a lot more to prove, because you have some unproven commodities pretty much at a lot of spots. And Arch Manning, even though, Longhorn fans have high expectations and, everybody believes he is capable of being, number one overall and a Heisman Trophy winner and also leading Texas to a national title. I believe all those things too. Largely unproven, though, against, legitimate talent, elite talent, which is you're going to have to beat to win a national title. So number one right now, because I've said before, I'm on the record for saying I don't feel like 25 is the year. I feel like 26 is the year. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but is if Arch is that damn good, hell, if he's that good, then he leads Texas to a national title in 25. And I do believe if he's that good, I don't see him staying for 2 years. I'll have that conversation too. I don't see if he's that good and wins the national title and wins a Heisman in his first year. I don't know if you come back. I don't know if you come
we're gonna have that conversation. Jeff, you're working on a story on that very topic. And as far as the juice goes, it is interesting to me that so many, 13 guys off to the NFL, or 12, should have been Isaiah Bond, should have been 13, but his own, stuff. But 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the preferred free agents, about 20 players off to the National Football League now to start their next phase. Doesn't that kind of open up things for Jeff for, new leaders to emerge? To go to your juice point, where new folks who, they couldn't be the leaders because there were veteran players ahead of them. Now they kind of have to step into that role, step into those. Michael Taft would be the one significant. DJ Campbell, guys who have been there and kind of done that. Everybody else is trying to find their way and establish who's going to be the new leadership of this team.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yesterday at the Touchdown Club of Houston luncheon, Sark mentioned a couple of times. He mentioned with us in the press conference and then in the actual luncheon part. He talked about the freshman class, and we know it's a talented class, right? Like there's no question, and the early returns have been great. He talked about that group being hungry, and that to me, that's a green flag for me, because I'm like, okay, they're not coming in complacent and thinking, hey, everything that these, what are we up to now? These 23 guys that just got drafted, the almost 30 guys that have gone off to the NFL after the last 2 years, they're not focused on resting on the laurels of those guys because they know they didn't accomplish it. They're hungry to win a championship at Texas and to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think too, the overall juice, when you talk about the more experienced guys, Sark mentioned this too. It's almost, Rod, like he's been waiting for this moment where this class with Arch and Ant Hill and that 2023 recruiting class, he's kind of waited for this group to become juniors, to where now that group, with what's left over from his first full recruiting class in 22, that's your leadership core right now. And I think that really excites him, because these are guys that they've recruited, they've developed, they've sold them on the vision, And when they got to campus, they could see the vision put into motion. So I think this is a team that's fully 100% bought in. As far as the number one ranking goes, if I'm doing it, the only thing that would keep me from putting Ohio State number one, and I would just give them that respect as a reigning national champion, is the fact that I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. And you hire, two new coordinators. I know Brian Hartline's been there for a minute, but he's never called plays. And I have no idea what to expect from Matt Patricia. If I'm doing it, I would put Penn State number one, because I think having a proven commodity at quarterback, say what you will about Fowler, I think that makes a difference. I think it's kind of one of those win big or go home years for James Franklin. Not to say he's on the hot seat, but I think we know, like, it sets up really nicely for Penn State. Like, you gave Penn State fans a taste of how close you can get to a national championship now. Now you got to get over the hump. I would put Texas 3. I think Texas is a top 3 team in the country in 2025. And, kind of like what you said earlier, Rod, if Arch is as good as we think he's going to be, then this is a team that should get back to the semifinals and is going to have a chance to be the last team standing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, if you look at the last few champions, and really every champion, but going into the season, Michigan had the fewest question marks. They really did. And, last year, Ohio State had the fewest question marks. They just didn't have a lot that you were concerned about. Obviously, with Michigan, it turned into, sign stealing and that whole scandal and how they had to navigate that. But that team had been in the playoff the 2 previous years, and Ohio State was, building to that, then went all in on the portal and added all the key pieces, and then added Jeremiah Smith as a true freshman, Georgia the year previous. So I do think, Texas has fewer questions than a lot of teams. I would agree with you, Jeff, that, Penn State's one of those that has few questions. They've added 3, they have great running backs. They have Drew Aller. They have everybody back. Who's going to be their best receivers? They've added 3 players through the portal, through receiver, which are unproven. And obviously, as far as questions go for Sark in Texas, I think there's a lot of knowns at Texas, but there's also some unknowns with 4 new offensive linemen and new defensive tackles. The 6 defensive tackles that have moved into the NFL in the last, or if you add Barron Sorrells to that, defensive end, 7 defensive linemen in the last 3 drafts. Those guys were, kind of all here when they got here, right? They were either in the recruiting class or they were on campus. How does this staff with Bo Davis and now Kenny Baker replenish that defensive tackles? There's been some attrition there. How do they, have these portal guys? Are they the right they identify those the right players? The young guys developing. To me, that's really the big question for Texas right now. Trenches inside, and then the 4 new offensive linemen. If that comes together, I think they may have the fewest questions if Arch is as good as you guys are talking and we're all talking about. But those are big questions when you're entering the SEC.
Yeah, I think for me, the lack of chemistry and continuity on the O-line, a lot of talent, of course, but offensive line, as Jeff talks about all the time, is one of those positions you really got to work as a unit. You got to be hive-minded, so it helps to have reps playing together. So I do wonder when that cohesion is going to happen. And then you're going up against Ohio State, so that may be a little tough to start out that way. So that's one of the question marks. I do think that, ultimately you start looking at some of the losses that they had on defense. I think the defense could have a different identity. I think it's still, I don't know if it could be as good as it was last year. It still could be really, really good. I mean, I'm talking about still one of the best defenses in the country, but I think it could look a little bit different. And then there's we haven't seen Arch. We just all have faith that Arch is going to come out like gangbusters and be able to really, put together a prolific and efficient offense. But, we don't know that. And so I think there's uncertainty, but I think ultimately Sark has earned trust. This is why Andy Staples will put him number one. You're the only team that's been to the Final Four in back-to-back years. You've put 23 players in the NFL last 2 years. That's the most in college football. He's earned a little bit of trust, I think, and a lot of preseason rankings are built on what you did the previous season and what you've done and the kind of trust that you've earned among the college football analysts and the college football media. And I think Sark has done a great job of earning some trust that he's going to be able to keep Texas right there if not winning a championship, on the precipice of it.
There are so many teams. You look at this top 25 from Andy Staples that we're looking at. there's so many teams in that top 10 that have either quarterback uncertainty or just quarterback issues, period. Like either we don't know or you don't have enough information to believe that they're the guy. From that standpoint, I mean, I feel like with Texas, what we've seen from Arch is really good, but it's a small sample. I'll be honest, guys. I mean, if not Penn State, as strange as this is going to sound, and maybe because it's just the James Franklin thing, but I'm a James Franklin apologist, but even I'm hesitant to, say Penn State's going to win a national championship. Man, I think because of the quarterback they got and the defense, the defensive front they're going to have on top of the league they play in, Clemson could be one of those teams that gets a first round bye. I mean, Clemson could go through the season undefeated, just because I think with Cade Klubnik leading the offense, they got all their receivers back. They've got a couple of first rounders on their defensive line. I think Clemson could be a team that we're looking at is in that kind of top 3 mix the whole year.
Well, and I think when you look at that top 25, that's Andy Staples. So Texas 1, Notre Dame 2. They think C.J. Carr is going to be their starting quarterback. That's Lloyd Carr's grandson. From Michigan, of course, the great Michigan coach Lloyd Carr. His grandson's likely to win that job. Obviously, as you said, Jeff, Clemson has Cade Klubnik back, who might be the best quarterback in college football. If not him, it's Drew Aller. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU could be in that. But we saw those LSU receivers too last year. Those young guys are really, really good, and they did a nice job against that Texas secondary. Penn State, they lose Tom Allen. Then one of the cool storylines to that top 5 with 3 teams there. Ohio State loses Jim Knowles to Penn State as a defensive coordinator because Tom Allen moved to Clemson, where he's now the defensive coordinator of the Tigers, running their defense. And as you said, Jeff, they've got a couple of first rounders on their D line. They've got talent on the defensive side, and Tom Allen should do a good job of scheming. That's the former Indiana head coach. Notre Dame, with C.J. Carr, the idea is they may have the best offensive line in college football, potentially, and the great running back, Jeremiah Love, behind it. So C.J. Carr should have a security blanket to start the year, and can they keep their defense where they are? But, yeah, I mean, we talk about questions. They all have them, but those are your top 5. Oregon, Dan Lanning has shown that he's going to turn a really good product every single year. And who's going to win that quarterback job? Is it Dante Moore or Austin Novosad, the kid from Dripping Springs? They've been a good battle through the spring. Alabama, Georgia. And how about Illinois there, guys? Illinois could be that Indiana kind of team this year with Brett Bielema. They bring everybody back off a 10-win team and a quarterback that did not jump in the portal, which a lot of people thought. I think that's an interesting, Big Ten team to look at. Florida with DJ Lagway, and then look at Texas Tech at number 11. That might be your Big 12 team to watch because they have gone full Ole Miss into the portal. They're the number 1 portal class. They spent a lot of West Texas oil dollars on their roster, which good for them. They're going in, and they've got number 11 and Andy Staples, and it's going to be about Joey McGuire running things through Lubbock. But that's an interesting top 10, man, or 11, I should say, with teams. And now we think about it in 12s, right? Can you make the playoff? Can you be in the top 3 or 4 in your conference is really what the challenge becomes.
Man, Tech, I like Joey McGuire personally. I've known him a long time, but you got to show me something before you want to tell me about Tech being a preseason top 12 team. I'm sorry. Like it's we've all fallen for the banana in the tailpipe one too many times with Tech now. Like you gotta show me something.
I mean,
they have quarterback issues too, Jeff. They have quarterback indecision as well.
I think it's just about the talent they brought in, though, right? It's all about the talent they're bringing in.
Yeah. But when you look at it, you look at Texas, and you compare Texas to everybody else. Like everybody else's questions, Texas has the sexiest questions about it. Like, is Arch going to be as good as we think he is?
Yeah, C.J. Baxter going to be healthy.
Yeah, like it's not there. I look at this team, Rod, and I look at it objectively, and even the offensive line, like Sark, I forgot who asked the question, but Sark corrected somebody yesterday in the press conference about the offensive line, talking about a young offensive line. Sark goes, "We're not young. Are we inexperienced? Yes." It's like, but we're not young. I mean, there's got Cole Hudson and Neto Mazzullo, and you got guys that Cole Hudson was a full-time starter. Granted, it was as a true freshman, but he's been around for a minute. Neto's been around for a minute. Trevor Gooseby got some invaluable experience last year. DJ Campbell's the the stalwart there, the guy that's going into his third year as a starter. So, you can look at the offensive line, but you at least know there's talent there. I look at Texas and I don't see any just glaring weaknesses with Texas. And even the areas I'm uncertain about, right? Well, at least they're talented. So it's not a question of the unknown. It's just, can you extrapolate that? What does it look like when you extrapolate that over a full season?
No, all the questions were interior D-line, and they brought in 5 D tackles this offseason via both transfer portal windows, kicker and punter, and they went out and got a kicker and a punter. Those were question marks. And then there was question marks about, are they inexperienced at wide receiver? Because they lost a lot there potentially, went out and got another wide receiver. I mean, there are no glaring question marks. Now, I do think there are elements that could keep them from winning a national title. That's the way I look at it now. Now I'm not looking at a team like, I don't look at it like, man, do they have holes in the roster or their liabilities, within the program? I think Sark has obviously a testament to that is him, competing for a national title in the Final Four the last 2 years. So now I'm looking at it, from a different perspective. What are the things that are keeping them from winning a national title? Because that's the conversation they're in. Of course, because of this post-spring top 25. So that's when we start really looking at the program with very, kind of almost harsh.
Microscope. It's a microscope, Rod.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be that because you want to celebrate how great they've been. But at this point, like I said, when I saw the 23 players drafted more than anybody in the NFL in college football the last 2 years, I thought to myself, damn, I feel like we underachieved it. Like
missed the window. Well,
yeah.
I know, Rob, we talked last Tuesday that, Jeff, you said, 2 years ago, if Jonathan Brooks doesn't get hurt, maybe they win the national title, and CJ Baxter's injury maybe put a cap on what that team could be. Yeah. Health is going to be a big factor. I mean, they got to keep their top tailback healthy all the way to the end. I mean, that's going to be pretty big. I think both of those injuries were impactful to Texas when they got to the small margins of the Final Four. Jonathan Brooks would have helped a lot in the Sugar Bowl against Washington. CJ Baxter would have helped a lot in the Final Four at the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State, and obviously didn't have those guys. But, I mean, Jeff, let me ask you about the continuity of the offensive line. You were an O-lineman. You talked to Sark this week. How important is it? Because Sark did, push back on that and say, no, we're not young. They haven't played a lot together. How important is it? I mean, this is something we've talked about, dating back before Sark got here. They've got to get to where they're not rushing freshmen on the field and not forcing guys on the field before they are ready to play. That was a real problem for Texas for a long, long time. How important is it that they do have continuity within the same offensive system, in the same weight program, with the same offensive line coach? I have to think that helps a lot, that these guys that are going to step in for the 4 guys that are now off to the NFL, gives them a real advanced head start towards being a really good offensive line.
Yeah, I see. I think back to the 2005 offensive line. And I think one thing people forget about that offensive line is Lyle Sinline wasn't a starter in 2004. Rod, I think you played with Jason Glenn. I think he was a teammate of yours. Jason Glenn was a starter. It seemed like Jason Glenn started for like 8 years at Texas, but he was a starter in 2004, and then Sinline came in. And that was a really big piece of it. But you were able to make that transition. Yes, having Vince Young as your quarterback helped a ton. Let's not sugarcoat that. But I think the fact that he being Lyle Sinline, he had really good chemistry with Casey Studdard and Will Allen, and it was almost like a seamless transition for losing your starting center. I don't think this is quite that case with this offensive line, but you've got guys, like I said, between Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell, and Ed Owens-Zula, you've got guys that have been together in the program. This will be their 4th year. So those guys have at least worked side by side. Cole Hudson worked enough center last year to where he and Neto were running a little bit together, but that the chemistry part of it in terms of guys working together, I think that's going to come. I think it's more to Rod's question. How long does it take? When does it click? I feel like it's going to click at some point. My bigger thing, when you talk about chemistry, it takes a really long time and a lot of reps for an offensive line to be a really good zone blocking offensive line. It's just one of those deals where you can't force that. And I know Sark last year, they leaned a lot. They made no bones about the fact that, outside zone was the kind of the bread and butter of their run game. It's the one thing they hung their hat on. I hope whatever that is, that it comes organically and that they figure it out, based on the scrimmage stuff, based on what they do in camp. Don't just assume, hey, we're going to be outside zone, and all of a sudden, people are blaming the offensive line and this offense is stuck in the mud because, we can't run outside zone. Maybe you need more pin pull stuff. Maybe you need to run more gap. Maybe you need more duo. Maybe you need other stuff that you haven't had to use the last few years that can help you accelerate the point to where you can become a team that's able to use outside zone and inside zone. You may not just be able to do it and assume that it's going to click the way it has the last couple of years, even though I think we can debate last year how good it clicked. But the bottom line for me is whatever those staple run game concepts are going to be, let it come organically. Don't try to force it. And I think that will make that chemistry process, that gelling process for this offensive line, I think it'll make it a lot better.
Yeah. And Rod, you can kind of give the X's and O's on this, but I want to, because, whether it's, outside zone or the gap scheme, they brought in Neil Brown from West Virginia, along with the running backs coach, Chad Scott. Chad Scott's going to coach running backs, replacing Tashard Choice. And, but Neil Brown's now, head coach analyst. And, we'll talk about that what that offense could look like, because obviously Neil Brown has had experience with quarterbacks who can run and use their legs and add that 11th player on the offensive side. How much does that change? We know Sark does not want to major in the offensive run game, but there could be some factors there. Want to get your thoughts on that as they build towards install. But tell them about Andy Ludicky, Rod, because Andy's one of our great Tuesday night partners. Also looking forward to your super chats and questions about this team, the top 25, the NFL draft, and everything we're going to get into over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. But Rod, tell them about Andy.
Appreciate that. Yes, and we appreciate Andy Ludicky and his team as well. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like myself that has their hands in different businesses. Yeah, if you're looking to diversify, you need to reach out to Andy Ludicky and his team, because he can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you're stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your schedule in general, reach out to Andy and he'll take you through a very detailed process to help you find a business that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. While franchise ownership isn't for everyone, if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, reach out to Andy today. Give him a call at 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901. Or you can reach out to him at Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football.
All right, guys. So, Rod, your thoughts on that? The what the run game could look like with C.J. Baxter, with another year for Jarrett Gibson, bringing in Neil Brown, Chad Scott. Those two have been together, back to their Texas Tech days. If you look at their roadmap of coaching, so there's something there that Sark's kind of leaning into. Also, the H-backs coach from Oklahoma State. You mentioned the microscope of this team, what it's going to be under, what's going to prevent them from winning a national title. Red zone, short yardage, run game when you against really good defenses. I mean, I think, and as you said, defensive tackles. Can you shore up the interior with 2 more guys or 3 more guys off to the NFL? But man, those are few, but those are very small questions, but they need to be answered if you're going to win a national title.
Yeah, and the things that have, been something that has been repeated, or a trend that we have noticed, a negative pattern that we have noticed with the team, those are things that we need to see them corrected, right? You brought up the red zone. I mean, Sark's got to figure out red zone post Bijan and Rojo, and maybe it is as simple as Arch Manning's mobility and Arch Manning's instincts. It could just be that simple. Texas has never post Bijan and Rojo. They haven't been a really good or elite third down team. Those are critical areas of football, right? Situationally. Last year, the turnovers, they were one of the worst teams in college football at taking care of the football. The third quarter, even going back to that Washington game, right? That third quarter that lost you that game. Red zone was the reason you lost that game. These are, I think, the issues, the systemic, almost feel like systemic issues that have now kind of plague the program. And I hesitate to use that kind of word, but I think that's what's holding you back from getting to a national title. and looking at it that way. So I do think Sark's in the lab this offseason, and he sees those things that have held back the program from finally getting over the hump. And defensively, the truth is defensively, they solved almost all their issues, right? Like offensively, there are still some issues that Sark really has yet to figure out or solve. And he's a brilliant offensive mind, but like I said, red zone has been an issue for 3 years. Like I said, third down, turnovers came up. It's most people would just blame that all on Quinn. And it could be that simple, that it's all on Quinn. But like I said the other day, if Quinn's getting drafted in the 7th round and Quinn regressed from 23 to 24, you have to put some of that on Sark. He's got to take some responsibility for that. Sark's done an amazing job, but quarterback development, that's on him and AJ Milwee, and there's no doubt Quinn regressed, and his regression was something that kept you from advancing past that Final Four that you got to in 2023. So to me, it's like I said, it feels rather harsh to look at the team that way, considering all they've accomplished. But that's how they have to, as the coaching staff. I know that's how they're looking at it. Like, hey man, what's keeping us from winning it all? Well, let's go down the checklist. Boom, 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 whatever it may be. All right, how do we approach the offseason? How do we approach training camp to fix and remedy those issues? And he did that, right? Sark does that all the time. He did it remember they couldn't finish, and he was like, all right, I changed up my practices. I changed it where the end of practice was harder than the rest of practice because I wanted to build to a crescendo so that we would finish games and close out games stronger. And what happened? They started to finish games. They developed the clutch gene because of that, right? So Sark understands those issues, and there are ways to approach the offseason training and practice to help you solve those problems. And that's what they got to do with those, like I said, those kind of systemic problems that have existed over multiple seasons.
Yeah. To a couple of things real quick. I think Neil Brown is going to help Sark with the quarterback run game, because you look at some of the numbers Garrett Green put up at West Virginia. So I think again, Sark mentioned it yesterday at the Touchdown Club, maximizing whenever Arch does use his athleticism, whenever they do let Arch carry the football, maximizing those runs, getting the most out of it. I think Neil Brown's going to help you do that. I also think, and Rod, I love Neil Brown just as a hybrid spread guy. He'll use fullbacks, he'll use H-backs and tight ends. I think trying to figure out how to maximize your personnel in short yardage situations, I feel like he can have a hand in doing that. A lot of what Neil Brown's doing right now, honestly, in a weird way, it almost feels like Sark hired Neil Brown to be like the Arch Manning whisperer. Just be like, hey, you just hang with Arch, and anything you can fill his head with that's positive, do it. Like Arch said, he didn't talk X's and O's with Neil Brown. It's all about leadership and being a good teammate and stuff that has nothing to do with anything X's and O's wise. So Neil Brown's doing a little bit of everything, but I think he's going to help in those 2 areas. But Rod, I think what you're talking about is the overarching theme of the offseason, really. It's you're beyond big picture stuff, that why can't this team get over the hump? What's it going to take to get through a semifinal and get to a title game? We're not talking about huge schematic things. We're not talking about you need such and such personnel. I think it really has to do with playing cleaner football. I think you just have to demand perfection at this point. If you're sorry, it's the penalties, it's the turnovers, it's winning field position, being clean in the kicking game. I think overall, just being cleaner is going to result in a better product. Now, you're going to have games where you turn the ball over. You're going to have games where it's just a weirdly officiated game, and you're going to have some penalties. Maybe you got a lot of holding calls that day. There's going to be stuff that happens, but by and large, can you be a team that doesn't shoot itself in the foot? You've been talented enough, and you're going to be talented enough to where most days you can overcome that stuff. But when you play like in Ohio State or a Georgia, and the talent level is just about where yours is, maybe even a little bit better, give or take a few spots, being clean is going to make the difference in those games. And that's what the Georgia game, the Georgia losses and the Ohio State loss last year, that's what it boiled down to. You didn't play clean enough football.
Yeah, right about that, 100%. And that's where this program is, number one in Andy Staples' post-spring portal, top 25. That's the expectation. So it is going to be on a magnifying glass this year of the things that can prevent this team from taking that next big step, even with all the attrition to the NFL. Jeff, let me ask you about this. You were down there with the Touchdown Club. I'll tell you a quick story in our audience. A quick story. I was Saturday just wandering around. Wife and I went out to South Congress, enjoying the day. We had some errands to run, and so we stopped in. We were on South Congress. Stopped in for a little bit of a quick snack, and I wanted to see where the draft was because everybody's waiting to see when, Shedeur Sanders was going to get drafted, when Quinn was going to get drafted, all these things. So I'm checking in on the draft, and we sit down at a little place called Joanne's on South Congress, and we're sitting there, and the Arch Manning's parents sit down right next to us at the little corner bar, and they had come from the scrimmage on Saturday morning, and they couldn't have been nicer. And of course, I knew who he was, and I said hello, and they were very, very kind. And so I grilled them a little bit, asked them some questions, and they weren't too candid, but they did say the scrimmage on Saturday was the most intense. They said it was really intense. Like they really got after it on Saturday. Well, the one thing I gleaned, he said it looked good. We didn't talk too much. I just left them alone, let them enjoy their deal, their BLT they shared. But what did you glean from the scrimmage? Cooper said it was pretty intense. It was, they got after it. There wasn't no spring game. It wasn't on TV, but he said it was Ryan Wingo had been held out of most camp. He was out there going full bore. Michael Taft, Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, all your starters who have been kind of held back got after it a little bit on Saturday. And what were you able to hear from that? And then what'd you take from Sark from the Touchdown Club?
I think from the scrimmage, you mentioned Ryan Wingo. They did some quarterback run game stuff with Arch. The returns on the offensive line that we heard, very encouraging, even in light of his situation. Some really positive stuff said about Nick Brooks. So, it feels overall, it feels like, to Rod's point earlier, the positional question marks they've at least got the talent there to get them solved. Whether it all comes together remains to be seen. But I think, they've recruited a couple special classes in a row, with 20, 22, 23, 24. This 25 class, it's starting to remind me a lot of the early returns you would hear. Like, you think about that 2002 class where, Rod, you guys were deep that year. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I keep referencing the 02 team, Rod, but I always think of an example that comes back to it.
I appreciate
that team was deep, but still, you had a young Rod Wright there. Like, he's got to play. You had a young Selvin Young was like, he's got to play. And so many guys that they had to get on the field. Like, you had to find room to put a young David Thomas because he was that good. I think that's what this freshman class is. As talented as Texas is, you'll see more freshmen contribute than I think you otherwise would assume. And I think what Sark learned playing a long season, knowing you're going to have to play a 17, 16 game season to get to a title game, I think we're going to see a lot of those freshmen in those 3 non-conference games after Ohio State. As far as the Touchdown Club goes, there was several things to glean from that deal. But I guess this is as good a time as any to have the Arch conversation. Sark was talking about, hey, trust me, we're celebrating, we're celebrating the achievements of this team the last 2 years, getting to the semifinals 2 years in a row. There's a conference championship, but Sark made it very clear. It's like, we should have won the SEC last year. We want to win a national championship. That is the goal. Like, we're not completely satisfied until we win a title. So I think overall hunger, and I think Sark keeps hiring coaches that are hungry, and they've got the formula. So I was encouraged by just kind of the overall mindset in the building. But when you talk about Arch, I've got the quote, part of the quote, because Sark had a really good answer. Somebody in the crowd asked if Sark had a feeling, if he had a sense of whether Arch was going to be at Texas 1 year or 2 years, basically how much longer is Arch going to be at Texas? And Sark answered the question, but here's part of his answer, and I love this. He said, let's let this guy go play this year. Let's let him have fun, finally getting his opportunity to be the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. It's been a lifelong dream for this guy to do this. He continued by saying, it's finally his time. I hope he can just have an opportunity to enjoy it and enjoy it the right way, because like a lot of guys on our team, he's been dreaming about this his whole life, and now he gets an opportunity to do it. I just want to make sure we all support him in this journey. Look, the silliness surrounding Arch's NFL eligibility is not going to stop. Like, it's going to continue. Like, the wheels are in motion for that circus rod, and it ain't slowing down. That carousel is churning, and it ain't going to stop until Arch ends up declaring for the draft at some point in his career. My best advice to Texas fans, man, just buckle up and just take this ride with this team. Because, look, unless something happens, I'll put it this way. If Arch Manning's only at Texas for 1 year, probably means you won a national championship.
Yeah.
Probably means you were the best team in the country. Because if Texas wins a national championship and Arch is that good, things will take care of itself. I would just say buckle up and enjoy this ride, because this could be 2 really transformative years for this program. And, you know, I love Mac Brown to death in that era of Texas football in the 2000s where you won, you know, what'd you win, like 86 games or something during the decade, like from 01 to 09. I think you're like 86-11 or something like that, like something ridiculous. And you won a national championship and you played for another and probably could have played for a couple more. But I don't feel like all the talent they had in the program at that time was maximized. I feel like Sark can do something that hasn't been seen at this place since Coach Royal had his heyday in the 60s. I think you could be that dominant where you're talking about multiple championships. I think Texas is in that kind of position. So I wouldn't worry about when Arch is leaving. Just let everybody talk. Hey, props to Matt Miller and Lance Zierlein, who both came out today, and they're like Matt Miller's from ESPN said he's not doing any work on Arch in 2026. He's like, he's either 2027 or 2028. And Lance Zierlein listed out some. He's like, why does everybody just assume Arch is going to be in the 26th draft? Like, he can be a multi-millionaire and play quarterback in college. Plus, you forget his uncles were 4-year players at their schools. So, all that said, man, I would just encourage everybody, don't worry about, you know, the circus is going to be the circus. You just, as Texas fans, y'all know the deal. Just enjoy it.
I think it is, first of all, we've heard from multiple sources, including his own grandfather, that they expect him to be in college multiple years. I do think if he has one of the greatest seasons in the history of college football, you know, if you're talking about the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback on the national championship team, yeah, he's gone. And I think we're all fine with that. I don't foresee that happening. Like, not even Vince Young won the Heisman and got the national title. So I don't know if that's going to happen. I do think he will be really good, like really, really good. And I think he's going to be good early too. I think him sitting for 2 years in the system, him having some chemistry with the wide receivers already, having gotten a couple of starts under his belt, you just don't see that in college anymore. And you just don't see it. I mean, first of all, good quarterbacks don't sit for that long.
Yeah,
they don't. They don't stay around that long. And good quarterbacks of his type of potential either, usually they don't stick around. So, and having the benefits of, you know, Sark, who is known as one of the quarterback whisperers, and being from the first family of football. So, you know, in addition to Sark's great coaching and, you know, development, he's getting developed on another level that none of us can imagine. All right. He's truly an old soul. But this is what I think. I think the Mannings know this better than everybody. And they probably knew it before everybody else did. Before now, I think it's more mainstream, this belief. But the NFL does not give a damn about development. They don't care about development. They're not built for it anymore. Go look at the last draft. All the developmental quarterbacks slid all the way down to the later rounds. They used to draft developmental quarterbacks in the middle rounds. Like, you know what? Let's draft one in the middle rounds. They can develop this guy. Nope. Either you are a quarterback with a skill set that the upside of it is so tremendous, we're willing to look past the downside, Jackson Dart, or you're a developmental guy. Man, we'll get to him later on in the draft. Go look at it. You drafted in the first 2 rounds. You had 3 quarterbacks drafted. I know this was a weak quarterback draft, but you had
2 in the first.
Right, 2 in the first and 1 in the second, and then you had in the 3rd through the 5th round, you had 3 quarterbacks drafted, and then in the 6th and the 7th round, you ended up with 8 drafted in the 6th and the 7th round. A lot of those developmental guys, usually you'd roll the dice on, push down. That's part of what pushed Quinn. That's not the only reason Quinn got pushed down. That's part of the reason. The NFL is not interested in developing quarterbacks anymore. Go look at how quickly they give up on quarterbacks they draft, even in the first round. They're not a developmental league. They're not built for it. The Mannings, who are the first family of football, and their family business is quarterbacking. And so they know more about quarterback than anybody on the planet, arguably. I'm sure they had this discussion 10, 15 years ago. They probably had this discussion when Eli was coming out, right? Before everybody got onto it. So I think now they understand nobody is interested in the NFL in developing a young Arch. That's why they're already set on him staying multiple years as a starter, because they know ultimately, even if he does have an amazing season next season, wins the Heisman, all that kind of stuff, there's still a good chance he could come back, because they want to see him build on that. They don't want him to be kind of a guy that flashes and having a small sample size go to the NFL and have to learn those lessons there. They would like the lessons to be learned at the college level. And even his dad even talked about that. Cooper's like, I know he's going to have some bad games, some growing pains, and I'm looking forward to it, because that's what's going to make him a way better quarterback. So
he talked about being in the stands, and he said being in the stands with a backup quarterback's the best. When you're a dad, that's the best. Everybody loves your kid, but I'm ready for this to be really bad this year, because I'm going to get yelled at when he makes a bad throw. And I think what you're saying is that, well, let me just say this. As someone who dined with the Mannings this weekend, they're our new friends. The observation is, I don't do the deep dive like you guys do, but there's never been a recruit like Arch. There's never been a player like Arch. There's everybody that's now saying, of course, he's going to go to the draft next year, all said there's no way he stays for 2 years behind Quinn. Then there's no way he does that. Well, here he is. He's a different breed, as you just said, a different person. He wants to enjoy college, has all along. They don't listen to the outside noise at all. They just kind of, as you said, they've been through it with Eli. He was a big recruit. Peyton was a big recruit. That's why the recruiting process was handled like it was. And now here's Arch with his chance. And, you just said it, Rod, development. I think even if they win the national title this year, he would leave college with under 20 college starts, because he's only 2. They could play a max of 17 games this year. If he plays every game, that's 19 starts, which, I think in the Manning's mind, the first family of football, Rod, they like to see him get 30, 35, 40 starts in college football before he goes off to the NFL, because they're planning on him playing college, pro football for 15 or 20 years. And how do you best develop you? And that's why I think they selected the coach that they did, because they liked Sark, just like the uncles loved David Cutcliffe, so they both played for David Cutcliffe in college. There's a plan here that's bigger than any story is going to be on the internet or clickbait or whatever it's going to be. They have a plan, and Arch, genuinely enjoys being a quarterback at Texas. Not bad. You got a brother here that's going to school. Why am I in a rush? NFL's not going anywhere. I'm good. But yes, as you guys said, if he wins the national title this year, there'll be some discussions about it. But I still think under 20 starts in college football was not the plan.
No, I've said from the beginning, to your point just now, this is the Manning family. They're not going to do anything half cocked. It's not, ready, shoot, aim with them. Let's not forget when Eli was coming out of Ole Miss, he wasn't drafted by the Giants. If anybody wants to remember that, they got him forced to New York. So they manipulated the NFL draft for the betterment of Eli Manning. So this family knows what they're doing when it comes to where they want somebody to go and what's going to be best for them in the long run. To Rod's point, if Arch is only here for 1 year, then you'll be talking about 2025 Arch Manning in the same way we talk about 2019 Joe Burrow or 2010 Cam Newton or 2005 Vince Young as, is this the greatest season we've ever seen from a college quarterback? It'll be one of those type years if Arch isn't gone. But there is a plan in place. And anybody that claims that they know for sure and it doesn't sound anything other than what we've talked about here, they don't know, or it's wishful thinking, because we're saying this stuff for a reason. And there's a reason why we're taking the stances that we're taking, and that I'm taking the stance I'm taking, because you know what the deal is. And there was a plan when to your point, there was a plan before Arch got here. There was a plan for him to get through these 2 years with Quinn, and now there's a plan now that he's the starter, how it's going to be handled.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Well said. by both of y'all for sure. And, and I think that's what he wants. He wants to play a lot of college football. I mean, I'm old enough. I don't know if you guys are. Jeff, I'm sure when Peyton Manning announced he was coming back to Tennessee for a fourth year, that was a massive story. Everyone assumed he was leaving. He wanted to beat Florida. He wanted to beat Steve Spurrier. I mean, that was a massive story in the late 90s when Peyton Manning announced he's coming back, because same kind of conversation. Everybody assumed, of course, he's going to the NFL. Of course, he's going to be the first pick. And Peyton Manning came back to Rocky Top for one more year, didn't win the national title, and in the ultimate, whatever you want to call that, they won it the next year with T. Martin.
It's crazy. That's the irony. That's wild. That's because that'd be like Sark not winning it with Arch and winning it whoever the next starting quarterback.
Trey Owens next year. Yeah.
KJ Lacey takes him to the
promise. Exactly.
Wow, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. Well, and he came back to win the Heisman, and Charles Woodson won the Heisman. I mean, that was
deservedly so.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it was that was such a
great Heisman, right? Wasn't that the one with all the? Was Randy in that one too?
Randy Moss.
Yeah, Randy Moss.
Cade McNown. No, it was Randy Moss. Michael Bishop was the other one that was in there.
Yeah, that was late 90s. So I was just beginning my radio career, and that was such a big story. That's such a big story. And there's 30 for 30s about it. Because you're right. It was Randy Moss. It was
amazing.
Charles Woodson. Because Peyton Manning came back to win the national title and win the Heisman. I mean, it was just assumed he was going to do that because he would have been the first pick the year before. And he came back and they didn't. And Bill Fulmer couldn't beat Steve Spurrier. I mean, that was great theater. But again, what you said, Rod, this goes back to Archie, Grandpa, way back in the 60s and 70s. They get this game. They get this sport. They understand it. They have a very grounded opinion of how things play out. They're not rushing to things. And, this is where Arch is. So I would agree. By the way, current betting odds are for Arch to be the first pick in the draft next year, but that's probably wasted money, I would guess. I think that's probably not a good bet. I would go a different direction if I'm looking to make and find a more value. Let me tell you about Mark Saunders, our great partner every Tuesday night. If, as I say, every single Tuesday, when you put your head on the pillow tonight, which I'm going to do here in a little while when the show wraps up, do you have everything covered? Are you covered? Are you in good hands? Is the important question you need to ask. And that's your stuff. Well, you're talking about your important things, your home, your car, your multiple homes potentially for some of you out there with rental properties, boats and motorcycles and RVs and ATVs and your kids' cars and all these things. Is everything covered? With more than 35 years of experience, Mark Saunders and his team at Allstate will be the umbrella you need. If you're looking for someone local to the Austin, Round Rock, Williamson County, Travis County area, please call Mark in his office tomorrow, 512-218-8571. That's 512-218-8571. So again, just always ask yourself and go in and get a good quote. Make sure you're not overpaying for all the things you're talking about. Maybe you feel like, my stuff is covered. Well, go and see if you can get a better rate, get a better quote with Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders, 35 years of experience, Longhorn fanatic. He's going to talk college football with you. Texas baseball #1 in the country and winning again tonight. Give him a call, talk it out, have the conversation. 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? You will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders and his team at Allstate.
Hey, E, I need to speak on this almost 30 years later, but I'm looking at the 97 Heisman voting. Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning, it was close. And Ryan Leaf was third. Randy Moss finished fourth. Tim Dwight from Iowa, who was kind of a hybrid running back, wide receiver, kick returner.
Great white hype, baby. Great white hype.
Tim Dwight had 39 catches that year. And Tim Dwight got 5 first-place Heisman votes. I hope those 5 guys lost their vote and they never got it back.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Wow. That's man, baseball Hall of Fame voters and Heisman voters. There's a lot of people that have them that shouldn't.
Yeah, that's right.
Need to cull those lists.
He had 39 catches. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, those are 5 votes that could have gone to Peyton Manning. I'm sure Peyton Manning's like, those could have gone to me or Randy Moss.
Oh, that's great.
That's that whole regional thing. That's a great point. That 90, that was such and Ricky won it the next year, obviously, in 98. When he like Peyton Manning came back for another year and won the Heisman Trophy, which was pretty cool. Great times. And the Longhorns are back in that conversation. Guys, I'll give you this little trivia and then we'll get back and get into some NFL draft conversation. The So the Longhorns have had 28 players drafted the last 3 drafts. 3 cycles. Went 5, 11, and 12. And if you Isaiah Bond should have been drafted, but he's got criminal issues and off-field issues. But so 28 in 3 years. Do you know if you go back 3 years ago, 2022 and backwards, do you know how many years you have to climb back to equal 28 total players drafted?
Yeah, I saw this. I think it's like 11 years or something, like 11 combined years.
It's 12 years. You got to go back to 2011. 12 drafts. Yeah, to get to 28 total players that have been drafted out of this program. I mean, obviously they were in the end of the Mac Brown, the Charlie Strong, Tom Herman era, so it wasn't the greatest. But even if you go back and look at the total draft picks when you were playing, Rod, and when Mac Brown was there were never double digits. There were never, and these were 7-round drafts too. So the 28's a big number. It goes to the draft. Let me ask you all this about the draft. Just first, I have not heard you guys' thoughts about Quinn Ewers and the slide, and just thoughts. You just said it, Rod. They're not drafting developmental quarterbacks. They're not interested in it. Cleveland did take Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, which I don't know if that was a great pick for them, but now they've got 2 rookie quarterbacks to worry about in Cleveland. But just thoughts on Quinn and the spot in Miami. I know Sark said at the Touchdown Club he good friends with Mike McDaniel, thinks that's a real good place for him. Just overall thoughts on the Quinn situation.
I will say this though, before we get to the Quinn thing, the NIL. Let's not act like it doesn't help.
Oh, it does. 100%.
Sark's doing a great job.
In the portal.
The collected, they're doing a really good job. Texas One Fund, CDC is amazing, and the staff is great. They're developing the players. All those things are a credit to the vision that they're executing for Sark. But I
appreciate you saying that because you have to, because there are a lot of guys that would have stayed longer, played longer. You guys were in a race to get to that paycheck. I get it. I mean, everybody needs to understand that and remember that.
Yeah. Mac Brown with NIL would have been a force too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sorry, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you say that. That's true. But just general thoughts on Quinn, opinions, 7th round, 231.
No, I'm looking at the numbers to this backs up Rod's point. I think we probably should have seen it in last year's draft, in the 2024 draft. You had the 6 quarterbacks going round 1, right? And hey, to Rod's point about how nobody's taking developmental quarterbacks in the middle rounds. You had Bo Nix went 12 overall to the Broncos. You didn't have another quarterback come off the board until the 150th pick in the 5th round when the Saints took Spencer Rattler. So I think the last 2 drafts are showing you they either see you as a starter, and I'm not sure how anybody sees Tyler Shuck as an NFL starter, but that's why they're doing what they're doing, and I'm not. But they either see you as a starter, a potential starter, or you're a developmental guy. And I think for Quinn, I think a lot of the developmental issues, I think a lot of it just goes back to the injuries and just his career that was never, and this goes back to something, Rod, that you pointed out, and I agree with you. Like, we never saw that run of games from Quinn where it's like, oh yeah, there was that 5 or 6 game stretch where he was just balling. Because of the injuries, it was just stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. It was just too erratic, too volatile for him to get on a good developmental trajectory. So to me, with Quinn, I think injuries is the biggest part of it.
Yeah, and I think those red flags were there. And one of the things I've talked about, Rod, and you and I have too, if you get hurt a lot, which he has back to his junior year of high school and skipped his senior year, and we know the roadmap of how Quinn got here. He also, because of the stop-start and lack of reps and things, I think he's got he's got pocket presence is not his strength. Functional footwork is not his strength. And I think if you're an NFL GM and you're watching the good tape and the bad tape, you're thinking, man, if he can't get out of the pocket and get away from this, he's going to get hit again. He's going to hit a lot in the NFL, and he can get hurt again. When he gets hit, he gets hurt, and that's just not that projects, which is what the NFL is all about. That projects to being injured when he gets to the NFL if he can't get better with the footwork. I know in our in-game watches this year during the games we do on the On Texas channel, or, you and Jerry and Coach Shipley, we'd all talk about the functional footwork and getting away from the rush and, being balanced in the pocket, those kind of things. That's still something he has to learn. But I think if you're an NFL GM, you're concerned that the injuries of college will continue into the NFL just until he learns how to get away from, big hits.
Yeah, no, and one thing about, Quinn, I've always said, I think he sees the pressure and actually stares at it. They always say quarterbacks should feel pressure. They always say feel the pressure. They don't want you looking at the pressure, because looking at the pressure, then you're not looking downfield, number one. But then I think oftentimes his feet, that's why you would see his erratic footwork. And sometimes his feet would stop, like they would almost stall. So I think he would be staring at times at the pressure and focusing too much on it instead of feeling the pressure. But sometimes, guys, that's a natural thing. You don't develop that, kind of naturally, organically throughout your college years. I don't know if you learned that in the NFL. And that's why I worry about how he handles pressure. I've always talked about that with Quinn. You put pressure on Quinn, his pressure to sack weight is pretty high. But to me, it's that his footwork deteriorates, the mechanics kind of decay under pressure too for Quinn, and he doesn't have the mobility like an Arch to be able to improvise and to be able to paint off kind of off script, if you will, right? To be able to,
and you would call that. I remember the phrase you used a lot, Rod. Bail out the play caller, right?
Yeah,
play caller calls the play, it doesn't work. Okay, get out, go. Bail me out here, help me. And Quinn just didn't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and he won't at the NFL. But I will say this: I think he went to the perfect team. If you asked me to make a list of teams, that would have been the perfect fit for him. The Miami Dolphins would have been in the top 3. Not only a Max Shanahan offense, but they've built and constructed the passing game to insulate a quarterback who's dealing with injuries.
Yeah,
like Tua. So it's a quick passing game, a lot of RPO based concepts. We know Quinn's great in the RPO game, short, quick pass to get the ball out of their hands. He's going from one of the fastest teams in college football, if not the fastest, to one of the fastest teams in the NFL, if not the fastest. So that's something that I think the commonality between the two, that Max Shanahan scheme, as we know, Sark's a big fan of it. So a lot of play action pass, heavy RPO game, lots of targets to motion. Nobody motions more in the NFL period than the Miami Dolphins. And we know Sark loves motion. So there's a lot, I think, for Quinn to celebrate once he gets done with the disappointment of dropping to the 7th round. There's a lot to celebrate about fit, because oftentimes, guys, in the NFL, so much of it comes down to, are you compatible with the scheme that you're playing in now?
Yeah, go be Brock Purdy, man. I agree with that, Rod. And, when we talk about just the slide, because I see a lot of it in the chat, maybe there was something we weren't privy to. I think on top of the injuries and the fact that he wasn't proficient or prolific throwing the deep ball, we referenced the Georgia game talking about pressure. You can't have those games where you just melt down. And Quinn self-destructed against Georgia. And I think that's a red flag for talent evaluators. Now, you can look through and find blemishes on Jackson Dart, and I don't think Jackson Dart should have been a first rounder. And you can look through and find blemishes on Tyler Shuck. And yeah, he's 6'5", 225. There's no way in the hell Tyler Shuck should have been a second round pick. I don't know what watching him for 9 years of college football that the NFL saw that none of the rest of us didn't. But again, that's why they make those decisions and we're not. So whatever.
Well, your Jackson Dart thing, just my prediction. I think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are not going to make it to next year in the next season and next draft, because they should have last year when they had the 6th pick and passed up on Michael Penix and Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. They probably should have gone and gotten their quarterback then. I like Malik Neighbors a lot, but now they didn't, and they went all in on Matt Stafford this offseason, and it didn't work. And now they got Russell Wilson, and now they reached and traded up for Jackson Dart. I think that's going to be a problem. But that's just, we'll see. We'll see. Jackson Dart is a talented guy, but, he also has kind of like Quinn does. He's got some meltdown tape too, where you're just like, what in the heck is going on here? And you took him in the 1st round. But either way, wish the best for all those guys. Is it possible? I was trying to do this today when we were getting ready for the chat here in the live stream. Which Texas Longhorn landed in the best place? Andrew Makuba's in Philadelphia replacing C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Vernon Broughton and Kelvin Banks are going to New Orleans, where Kellen Moore is a first-year coach with Bo Davis and Terry Joseph on the staff. That's pretty cool. Jahdae Barron going to join maybe the best secondary in pro football with Patrick Surtain. Matthew Golden can be the number 1 receiver for Jordan Love on a really deep receiver core. and Jaden Blue going to the Dallas Cowboys, Jeff. I mean, they're bringing Tyler Booker. They need a running back. They need some speed and some athleticism at that position. I just think all the Longhorns, including Quinn, went to spots that are going to suit them very, very well.
There's not anything that's, Rod can probably be a better judge of this than me. There's nothing that stands out to me as like a bad spot for somebody to be in.
Right.
Now, the one where I'm kind of on the fence is Matthew Golden, and that has nothing to do with the Packers. It's just I still don't know that Matthew Golden is a true number one wide receiver. I think he could. That's why I got my head wrapped around him being the Cowboys pick, because I'm like, well, if he's a number 2 with CeeDee Lamb, then I love that. I don't know if he's like a legitimate, when we think of a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, I don't know if he's that. That's no knock on him. Just I don't know. But the 2 guys I look at Jaden Blue and Cam Williams. Cam Williams, because there's no pressure on him to play at all. And he's going to be with Jeff Stoutland, who's probably the best O-line coach in football right now. And he'll get to sit, essentially redshirt and develop. And, if the buy-in is there and, he's dedicated to football, man, the Eagles got them a steal in the 6th round. Jaden Blue, because the Cowboys are going to ask him to do what he's good at. They're not going to ask him to be a 20-carry guy. They want him to be in the slot. They want him to be a 3rd down guy. They want to use his speed. And that, as a Cowboys fan, I'm going to give them some credit for intriguing me. I think the combination of – they didn't draft the number 1 tailback in this draft, right? But I think the Moneyball approach with what Jaden Blue brings to the table and what Phil Maffa brings to the table, who they took late, that's intriguing as hell to me, because you combine Blue, who's a speedster, with Maffa at 230 plus. I don't know, Rod. I'll borrow a phrase from Jerry. My loins are girded for the Cowboys winning game in 2025.
Yeah. No, I actually like that place for Jaden Blue. It's the crazy thing about it. I think a lot of the Longhorns ended up in places where they can break through into either a starting lineup or be a contributor sooner rather than later. I truly believe that. I think that's the case for Makuba. I think that's the case for Alfred Collins. And this is aside from the first round guys. First round guys, of course, they start no matter what. Their first round. But Alfred Collins, Makuba, I think, man, this is this crazy part. I think Jaden Blue is going to be somewhere he can contribute right away, because the Cowboys need explosivity in their backfield, and they have for a while. Barron Sorrell with Green Bay, they really like Barron Sorrell. Yeah. You should have heard Matt LaFleur talk about him and said that basically every player they brought in from Texas, when they would ask him, like, hey man, who's the guy that basically kind of set the standard at practice, who was the best teammate, hardest, guy always working hard, the best attitude, best leader. Like he said, Barron Sorrell kept coming up. And the Packers, they character matters to them, right? Character and culture matters to them. They like Barron Sorrell. That was a kind of not aside from him being a good player, he was also a character and kind of a culture pick for them. Him being there too, that's kind of an emotional. He's a fan favorite already. Don't be surprised if Barron Sorrell ends up kind of contributing to them early on.
Paying his own way to be there, and hoping he got drafted on Friday, but didn't. I thought that was cool. His parents were there. Then he walked across the street and walked into the draft room and said thank you to everybody who made that pick of him. I think that's high character guy. Yeah, I think well said. And Vernon Broughton. I mean, the 49ers, Rod. The Niners well. They've lost 10, 11 free agents. I mean, that's the place where he's going in, and they need some. They took Michael Williams with pick 11. They come back with him in the 2nd round. So I think all those guys have a chance to flourish early in their NFL careers. Real quick, let's get to the super chats. But first, can we talk about advanced pain care? If you're getting up there in age, I'm over 50 now. Rod's over 40. Everybody's pushing this, and you're going to start having these aches and pains and injuries, and you're going to think it's not a big deal. Don't put it off. Go see our friends at Advanced Pain Care, because those injuries that feel minor will turn into bigger deals. It'll lead to other injuries. Let's tell you about them.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, let's get to the super chats. Brooke, thank you so much. Wow. That was great. Wow.
Let me get my helmet.
There it is. This says, Rod, when we get more Mac Brown, I really enjoyed his episode on 3rd and LHN, and I could have listened to his stories all day. What's his new role at the 40? Is he going to be around the program in any capacity? Can he start a podcast? Go ahead, Rod.
Oh, thank you, Brooke, for the super chat. Very kind of you. Anytime we get a big super chat like that, I always like to put my helmet on. No, when I talked to Coach Brown, he said he was looking forward to getting to be around the program again and being back in the city. Of course, he loves the city of Austin. In terms of him, his role on the 40, I don't know. I mean, he'll always be considered, a member of the family. I don't know specifically if they have a role for him. I do think he wants to get back to at least representing the brand and the family in some capacity. So I know that he's been in touch with the 40 Acres and how they want him to, exactly how they want him to be a brand ambassador, if you will, for Texas. I'm not sure. He didn't really mention that. He did mention that he is interested in helping the university in any way that they need him, any capacity, whether it be. And I think, I think he was really open to, like, even if they want to bring him on, they need ideas from Mac, or they just need Mac to go, talk to boosters and donors, whatever. I think I got the feeling that Mac will be open to anything the university needs, because I think he wants to be of service. I mean, Mac's a guy about serving the community, the program, the student athletes. He's always been about that. So glad to have him and Sally back. So I don't know if he's going to start a podcast. That would be a good idea, actually.
That would be. No, he's always been great to listen to and tell stories. He's a storyteller, no doubt, at the highest level. Did he say anything? I mean, you don't have to tell stories, Rod, or secrets, but I know at Texas, he was almost replaced by Nick Saban, a lot of people believe. And now at North Carolina, he's been replaced by Bill Belichick. Is there any thought on what's going on there? What a mess. That place, that whole story is unbelievable. I got to think.
If I know Mac, he's got an answer ready for that, because Mac is just so damn savvy with the media.
He's going to get an answer. He's going to get asked.
And exactly. And I think he's ready for it. If I guess, the answer will be something like, they had to get the GOATs to replace me. They had to get the all-time greats to replace me. That's the only way it can go over well. They had to get the greatest coach of all time in college, greatest coach of all time in the NFL to replace me. And you know what? Can't get mad about that. I think that'll be something along the lines. If I had to guess, I haven't talked to him about it. I just know the man very well, and I know how savvy he is with the media. And like you mentioned, he knows that question is coming somewhere. Now that he's making the rounds. We didn't ask him, and we talked about it behind the scenes, by the way. But we didn't ask him that question on the platform because we kind of ran out of time. He had so many great stories to share.
Oh yeah,
but he's got an answer ready. I guarantee you he does.
Well, they've hired him, and he's kind of sold the program out to a 24-year-old. It appears he's running the whole show. That thing is unbelievable.
I talked to somebody about that today in the kind of college football media world, and it is bizarre and. People are buzzing, and it ain't positive buzz, what people think about that. So.
Well, and you're sending emails to the vice president of, marketing, and you're not an employee. The strongly worded emails, that's something else. Golly. We know Sally Brown was heavily involved in the Texas program in good ways, because that can certainly impact the program, but that seems odd. Just wonder where his boys are, his kids that are on the staff too there.
The conspiracy theories now are crazy and out of this world. Does the connection, him and Robert Kraft and some of Robert Kraft's, and now where they met. Remember, she wanted to interrupt the interview when they asked, how'd you guys meet? And she didn't want people to know how they met. It's like, well, what couple doesn't want to share the meet story? Like that, every couple got the meet story. You got that ready to go, like Mac Brown, DKR stories, you know what I mean? And you don't want to tell the meet story? Oh, that's shady. Something going on. Something shady must have happened. Yep.
Yeah, she got something on him, feels like. Hey, can we get to another super chat? Thank you so much, Brooke. That was so kind. Go look at the Clemson game last year when Connor went to center, Hudson goes to left guard, and DJ at right guard. They ran over Clemson, got bigger like in 2025. Look, we'll all see. We will, baptism by fire against Ohio State week 1. But, I don't think there's panic for the offensive line, Jeff. Is that a fair way to put it?
No panic at all. Plus, there's a reason why Clemson hired a new defensive coordinator in the offseason too. Yeah, that was the talent. Clemson and Texas A&M were the two defenses I saw last year. I'm like, the talent and the what I see finished product, it ain't adding up.
Oh man, that's that. They run one concept on them and beat them with just one concept all game long.
Yeah, but think about this though. Like to Tex fans' point, in a college football playoff game, when the game is there's still high leverage snaps to be played in that game. You had Cam Williams and Jake Majors go out, and you ran the ball better in the second half, arguably, with those two guys out, with bringing in Cole Hudson and Trevor Gooseby. So, yeah, I worry less about the personnel and more about, Sark just not forcing run game concepts and just letting it develop organically. Don't try to force it. Just let it happen.
Yeah, I got to think Dabo Swinney, as good a coach as he is, watched the Georgia game, then watched their game, and then watched the Arizona State game and said, yeah, I got to fire that guy. Come on. What are we doing? Like, what in the heck? I mean, the Arizona State doesn't have the defensive personnel we have, and they shut down the run game for Texas. All right, let's get another super chat in here on the On Texas Football Tuesday Night Livestream. Football Junkie is up in here. Rod B, you get to see any practice, meet the players this past weekend? How did the guys look up close?
I did not. I was out at the Fan Fest. I had some stuff that I was doing with Third and Longhorn and like LHN, so I didn't get a chance to actually go out to practice or see anything. I didn't hear a lot about practice from folks who were there behind the scenes, because they had just, I think before they came out for the autographs, they had just came straight from practice. And the word was the O-line looked good, especially the tackles. That Arch and Ryan Wingo looked good. That was something else that was discussed. I think the D line, interestingly enough, I think, and if I was talking about, because I actually talked about this last week about which of those defensive tackles is going to assert themselves and be the most impactful. Because remember, they brought in 3 guys last year, D tackles via the transfer portal. And you ended up with a kind of a rotation of 4 guys that you kind of trusted. And I think your 4 guys in this group will be, like I said, I don't know how they performed their practice, but it'll be Cole Brevard. I think it'll be Watson, the young man who came in just now, the freshman All-American.
Syracuse.
Yep. And I'm telling you, I said it, Alex January, I'm telling you, I think Alex January is going to take a step. And I think he can potentially be one of those dudes that can be a run stuffer on early downs and also be someone who can apply pressure on passing downs, on later downs. So I'm hearing good things about him as well, about Alex January and him stepping up. And, so I most of the stuff that I've heard, I haven't heard about any like glaring holes or Shakespearean flaws with the team. Like and I think that's what I look out for the most. I mean, there are positions that are open, guys are competing. I haven't heard about, oh man, this is something that's an issue that the coaches have been, harping on all spring long, that they can't fix this, or they're looking at that, or, even throwing solutions. Even the corner spot opposite Malik Muhammad, I heard good things about 3 or 4 different guys who've had great springs already. So overall, everything I've heard, most of the stuff I've heard has been really optimistic, and I think it's been really positive, especially about the younger guys, like this young crop of players coming in, which could, like Jeff mentioned earlier, it could foreshadow Texas going on some kind of run, because a lot of the glowing compliments I'm getting about guys are about some of the youngest players on the team.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, in addition to Alex January, Lance Jackson's another one of those guys that I mean, you think, okay, that edge room is stacked, but man, he's making it a point. Like, he's forcing the hand of the coaches right now with the spring he's had. Like, they're going to have to find reps for him.
He's one of them too. Yep.
Justice Terry the same way. So.
Yep.
Well, and I think I'm glad you mentioned the kid Murad Watson from Syracuse. I mean, I know Texas paid for it, but his former coach Fran Brown gushing about his relentless motor and worked his way as a low-star recruit out of the state of New Jersey into a freshman All-American. That guy, you're not going to worry about him taking plays off. And I know that's what Sark and Kenny Baker and the defensive staff are big on. We need your maximum. It's going to be like shifts in hockey. We're going to put you in there, but man, we need all of it, all on every snap. And Murad Watson, Travis Shaw from North Carolina, Cole Brevard, you mentioned from Purdue. Those guys are on tape, bringing that energy, bringing that Hero Canoe from Ohio State. It's not a hard sell for Kenny Baker, man. We've got 6 guys that are not playing on Sundays because they came in and followed the lead, did what we needed to do, and the NFL noticed, and now they're playing, for a paycheck every Sunday afternoon, which I think is pretty good. One more here, Sailor Joe. Thank you. Which G5 dark horse do you think secures a spot in 2025? I love that from the top 25. G5 dark horse from the G5. So actually G6 now, because I think we narrow it down. There's no Pac-12 anymore. So G6, is there a Boise State, Ashton Genty team? Is there one out there? Because we had Texas Tech and BYU is probably in Arizona State fighting in the Big 12.
That's a good
Clemson
one.
in the ACC. It's Clemson, probably SMU, probably Miami. But is there a group of 6 school that you guys are looking at that maybe could be somebody to watch?
If Memphis can get quarterback figured out, they're a team that's usually right there. And I think in the American, they've got a chance.
Okay. Yeah, I got to look at that more. I haven't really dug deep on the G6 teams just yet.
I'm saying it's hard not to. It's hard not to say Boise State's going to be. You're going right. I mean,
yeah, that's good.
Boise State's bringing to the table. I know they're losing Ashton Genty, but Boise State's been a competitive group of 5 team for a long time. If I was just throwing blind blank out there to see if it stuck, I'd probably say Boise
State. They've got a tradition. They built a program. One more time before we wrap this thing up, Matthew, can you throw the Andy Staples graphic up? And maybe there's a team on there. Let's see what Andy Staples thinks about that group of 16 that might make some noise. I don't think he has one.
No G6. Yeah.
No,
not one.
Man, no UNLV or I'm trying to think of somebody else. Group of 6. Is Navy going to be good again? Navy.
Yeah. All their best players are playing on one of these teams, probably. I mean,
yes. Here's the problem, guys. Especially looking near the year, Sailor Joe. All those schools, most of them, the G group of schools, group of 5, group of 6 schools, their attrition rates are high, and they're losing their best players to the power schools. So Texas attrition rate may be whatever it is, but Texas is not losing its best players. They can retain their best players. That they have a retention specialist for that. Group of schools, they lose their best players year after year. That's part of their issue. All of them.
What's funny, recently, actually, was at the Texas baseball game a couple of Tuesdays ago, or last Tuesday. Well, I wasn't here last Tuesday. I was talking to G.J. Kinney about this because his team got ready. Stark stole his kicker. I mean, Stark came in and Texas stole his kicker. And, he said, it is what it is. I mean, he's got kind of the Sark mindset. And he said, we just raid the level below us. That's we go get those guys. We're gonna find players. I mean, we're not gonna cry about it. We can't. But the level below Texas State and those group of 6, those are the ones that are they're having a hard time. And then the high school. I mean, I think we all feel for high school players that are having a hard time.
Oh yeah,
finding spots because there's almost nobody recruiting high schools right now. That makes it at every sport too. That's very difficult. But it's a whole new landscape. Hey, guys, good stuff. Over almost an hour and 20 minutes of Arch Manning. Texas football is number 1 in the On3 Sports. Andy Staples, preseason top 25 coming out of the spring. A little draft chatter in there. Thank you to everybody. Tell them about Andy Ludicky one more time, Rod.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a sponsor of our Tuesday night live stream. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone that has their hands in multiple businesses. Well, Andy can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you've been stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your schedule in general, reach out to Andy and he'll take you through a very detailed process to help you find different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your skill set sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, reach out to Andy today, 404-973-9901, or you can reach out to him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for sponsoring our team here at On Texas Football.
Hey, E, real quick before we get out, two things that Bobby and Jerry wanted me to pass on before you see those guys on Coffee and Football tomorrow. One, thank you, everybody, for helping us get to 80,000 subscribers, cross 80K today. So thank you. We would not do that without you, the viewer, so we appreciate that. And tomorrow on Coffee and Football, Texas men's golf coach John Fields will be the guest on Coffee and Football.
Nice. I like it.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, we need to get Jordan Spieth that PGA Championship, get him the career Grand Slam too, coming up in Quail Hollow this May, next month. That'll be the next golf major. Scotty Scheffler, of course, and what a great golf program they built over there. That's going to be fun. That's 8:00 tomorrow, 8:10 or so tomorrow when they crank that thing up, and it goes all day. Over 80,000 now. Thanks to everybody. Thank you to Matthew so very much. All the super chats, especially Brooke and the $50 super chat. That was very kind. Thanks so much. Hey, spring practice wrapped up. The draft's in the rearview mirror. Texas is going to take a break as far as football goes for a little bit, but there will not slow down the On Texas Football channel. The conversation continues. Rod's got his helmet on because he's fired up and ready to go. Hook him, everybody. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Rod.
Thanks, E. Hook him.